A story that will completely change your perspective on rash judgments and the true value of people. Get ready for a twist no one saw coming. If you're ready to find out how a simple janitor humiliated New York's top experts, like this video, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories like this. It was a gray Tuesday in October in Manhattan, New York. The biting afternoon wind swept the yellowed leaves along the busy avenues, while thousands of people hurried along the sidewalks, each lost in their own world of problems and ambitions. In the city's financial heart, the Thompson Industries building stood majestically, a glass and steel skyscraper that touched the clouds and housed one of the largest technology corporations in the United States. On the 42nd floor of this giant of concrete and dreams, Richard Thompson, a 62-year-old tycoon, paced nervously in his panoramic conference room. His graying temples gleamed in the artificial light, and his hands trembled slightly as he held a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. Around him, an oval table of polished mahogany was surrounded by 15 of the brightest minds money could buy: software engineers from MIT, consultants from Harvard, systems experts from Stanford, and analysts who charged $1,000 an hour just to breathe in the same room. The problem plaguing them was not simple. Over the past 3 weeks, the building's central security system had developed a mysterious flaw that none of these gifted minds could decipher. It wasn't a simple bug or programming error. It was something far more complex and disturbing. The system, which controlled everything from elevator access to security cameras, had begun exhibiting erratic and unpredictable behavior. Can you imagine the pressure a multi-millionaire tycoon feels when his empire is threatened by a problem no one can solve? Keep watching to discover the most unlikely solution in American corporate history. With each passing day, the situation became more critical. Employees were trapped in elevators for hours. Security cameras recorded empty hallways while ignoring suspicious activity. Doors automatically locked, preventing access to important rooms. Most worryingly, the system seemed to be learning and adapting to correction attempts, becoming increasingly resistant to expert intervention. Richard had invested over $200,000 in specialized consulting. Entire teams of programmers worked day and night, consuming industrial amounts of coffee and energy. But the problem persisted like a digital ghost that refused to be exorcised. The company's reputation was beginning to be questioned, and shareholders were pressing for an immediate solution. "Gentlemen," Richard said, his voice hoarse with fatigue, interrupting yet another fruitless meeting. "It's been 21 days. 21 days of utter failure. Our customers are losing trust, our productivity has plummeted 40%, and you keep giving me the same answer. We're working on it." Dr. Marcus Chen, the consulting team leader and a summa cum laude graduate of MIT in computer science, adjusted his glasses nervously. "Mr. Thompson, I understand your frustration, but this isn't a conventional problem. We're dealing with something that defies known patterns of system behavior. It's as if the code itself has developed a primitive form of defensive consciousness." "Defensive conscience?" Richard replied sarcastically. "Doctor, I don't pay $300 an hour to listen to science fiction theories. I need practical solutions." Sarah Williams, a senior systems analyst on the team, timidly raised her hand. "Mr. Thompson, perhaps we should consider a more radical approach. We could try a complete system reset, even though that would mean losing all configuration data from the last 5 years." "Absolutely not," Richard replied flatly. "That data is worth over $10 million. I'm not going to throw it away because of a technological whim." Imagine the tension in that room. The country's greatest minds, perplexed by a problem that seemed to have a life of its own. But wait until you find out who really had the answer. Leave a like if you're curious too. It was then that Richard made a decision that would change everything. He rose from his chair, walked to the large window that offered a panoramic view of Manhattan, and staring at the city skyline, made an announcement that echoed through the halls of Thompson Industries like thunder in a calm sky. "Listen up," he said, turning to face not only the experts in the room but also the employees who had gathered curiously at the door. I'm officially offering $50,000 to anyone in this building who can solve this problem. I don't care if it's the CFO or the janitor on the first floor. Whoever comes up with a workable solution will win the prize. The silence that followed was deafening. $50,000 represented more than 2 years' salary for most employees. It was a sum that could change lives, pay off debts, fulfill dreams, or guarantee a child's education. The news spread through the building with the speed of a fire, and within an hour, virtually all 800 employees at Thompson Industries knew of their boss's extraordinary offer. In the following days, a steady stream of employees paraded through the executive floor, secretaries with theories about computer viruses, accountants with hypotheses about hardware failures, salespeople with suggestions about software updates, and even the chef of the executive restaurant with a curious idea about electromagnetic interference caused by the kitchen's industrial ovens. Each suggestion was carefully analyzed by the team of experts, but none produced results. The system continued its erratic behavior, as if mocking human efforts to tame it. Richard began to question his own sanity. Had he made a mistake in making that public offering? The experts clearly didn't appreciate having their competence questioned so directly. The tension was at its peak. Can you imagine how frustrating it must be to have the best money can buy and still not find a solution? But get ready, because the real heroine of this story is about to enter the scene. On Thursday of the second week after the announcement, as Richard was reviewing financial reports in his private office, he heard a soft knock on the door. "Come in," he said without looking up from his papers. To his surprise, when he finally looked up, he saw a small, unassuming woman standing in the doorway. She wore a simple blue uniform, had gray hair tied back in a messy bun, and was carrying a cleaning cart she had carefully left in the hallway. "Sorry to bother you, Mr. Thompson," she said in a soft but determined voice. "My name is Maria Santos. I've been the janitor of this building for 18 years. I'd like to speak with you about the security system issue." Richard blinked several times, certain he had misunderstood. "Excuse me, ma'am." "Santos. Maria Santos," she repeated, stepping forward. "I heard about your offer of $50,000 to whoever can solve the system problem. I think I can help." For a moment, Richard was completely speechless. His first reaction was disbelief mixed with a twinge of irritation. How could a janitor possibly have the solution to a problem that had left even the most knowledgeable tech experts completely baffled? But there was something about Maria's confident posture, the way she maintained direct eye contact, that kept him from dismissing her out of hand. "Ms. Santos," he said finally, trying to maintain a respectful tone, "I appreciate your initiative, but this is an extremely technical and complex problem. Our team of experts has been working on it for weeks without success." Maria smiled gently. "Mr. Thompson, with all due respect, I know exactly what this is about. I've been watching this building operate for almost 2 decades. I know every hallway, every room, every quirk of this place, and most importantly, I've noticed things that others might not have noticed." Can you feel the tension in this moment? A janitor confronting a multimillionaire tycoon with the confidence of someone who truly knows what they're talking about. Subscribe to the channel because the upcoming twist will leave you breathless. Richard leaned back in his Italian leather chair, crossed his arms, and decided to give Maria a chance. Deep down, he recognized he had nothing left to lose. "Very well, Mrs. Santos. I'm listening. What's your theory?" Maria took a deep breath and began speaking with a clarity and precision that surprised Richard. "Mr. Thompson, over the past few weeks, I've been paying extra attention to the system's behavior patterns. I've noticed that the failures aren't completely random. They follow a specific temporal pattern that coincides with nightly cleaning activities." Richard frowned. "Cleaning duties? What do you mean?" 3 months ago, Maria continued, the cleaning company introduced new equipment, state-of-the-art, commercial robotic vacuums for the executive floors. These robots operate on specific frequencies and have navigation systems that communicate with sensors installed in the walls. Richard's expression began to change from skepticism to genuine curiosity. "Go on." "These vacuum cleaners," Maria explained, were programmed to operate during the early morning hours when the building is supposedly empty, but they weren't properly integrated into the existing security system. In fact, they're creating interference with communication protocols. The security system interprets the robot's signals as intrusion attempts and activates its automatic defenses. Richard was silent for a long moment, processing Maria's words. The explanation was elegant in its simplicity, but it also revealed a deep understanding of how complex systems can interact in unexpected ways. "Mrs. Santos," he said slowly, that's a fascinating theory, but how can I verify that it's correct?" Maria smiled wider. "I can show you exactly where the sensors on the vacuum cleaners are that are causing conflict, and we can do a simple test. Turn off the robots overnight and see if the security system works normally." At this point, the brilliant mind behind the solution wasn't someone with a PhD from Harvard or MIT, but a simple woman who truly knew every inch of that building. Like this video if you also believe that practical experience is worth more than diplomas hanging on the wall. Richard immediately summoned Dr. Marcus Chen and the entire team of specialists to his office. When he explained Maria's theory, the reactions were mixed. Some of the consultants expressed barely concealed skepticism, while others seemed intrigued by the possibility that such an elegant solution had gone unnoticed for so long. "With all due respect to Ms. Santos," Dr. Chen said, "this theory, while interesting, seems a bit simplistic to explain the complexity of the behaviors we observed." Maria addressed the doctor directly. "Dr. Chen, I can show you exactly where the trouble spots are. I've been mentally mapping every strange interaction I've witnessed during my nightly rounds. And then something extraordinary happened." Maria led a procession of highly skilled specialists through the halls of Thompson Industries, pointing out specific locations where she had observed anomalous system behavior. At each point she pointed out, the technicians discovered the exact navigation sensors of the robotic vacuums she had mentioned. "Look here," Maria said, pointing to an inconspicuous corner near the 30th floor elevators. "Every night at 2:15 in the morning, elevator number 3 makes an unscheduled stop on this floor, just as the robotic vacuum cleaner passes this sensor." Dr. Chen checked the system logs on his tablet, his expression gradually changing from skepticism to amazement. "She's right. There's a record of sensor activation at exactly this time every night for 3 months. The ultimate test was scheduled for that very night. At 9 o'clock, Maria manually turned off all the building's robotic vacuum cleaners. The team of experts set up shop in the control room, monitoring every aspect of the security system through dozens of screens and real-time graphs. The moment of truth had arrived. Dozens of experts with 6-figure salaries nervously watched the screens, while a minimum-wage janitor might be about to solve a $200,000 mystery. Leave a like if you're eager to know the outcome. As the hours passed, something magical happened. For the first time in 3 weeks, the security system worked perfectly. No elevators stopped on random floors. No cameras inexplicably lost connection. No doors automatically locked. The system operated like a Swiss watch, executing every command with pinpoint precision. Dr. Chen checked and rechecked the data, barely able to believe his eyes. "It's impossible," he muttered. "The correlation is perfect, absolutely perfect." Sarah Williams, who had worked 16-hour days for weeks trying to solve the problem, looked at Maria with a mixture of admiration and humility. "Ms. Santos, how did you manage to identify this correlation when we, with all our equipment and analysis software, couldn't?" Maria responded with characteristic simplicity. "You were looking for complex solutions to what you thought was a complex problem. I just paid attention to what was going on around me. When you work in the same place for 18 years, you notice when things aren't working as they should." Richard Thompson remained silent throughout the demonstration, observing not only the technical success of the solution, but also the reactions of his expensive and highly skilled team. There was a profound lesson being taught in that moment, a lesson about humility, observation, and the value of practical experience versus theoretical knowledge. This isn't just a story about solving a technical problem. It's a story about how we judge people based on appearances and titles, and how true wisdom can come from the most unexpected places. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that will challenge your prejudices. The next morning, Richard called a general meeting of all Thompson Industries employees. The building's main auditorium was packed. Employees from all levels of the hierarchy crowded together, curious to know the outcome of the saga that had dominated the conversations of the past few days. Employees of Thompson Industries, Richard began, his voice echoing over the PA system. Today we are here to acknowledge not only the solution to a technical problem, but also to learn a valuable lesson about snap judgments and the true value of people. He paused, looking at Maria, who was sitting discreetly in the front row, still wearing her blue work uniform. 3 weeks ago, a mysterious problem nearly paralyzed our company. I hired the best experts money could buy. We invested a fortune in consulting and overtime, and the solution came from someone many of you see every day but may never have really noticed. Richard called Maria to the stage. She stood shyly, clearly uncomfortable with all the attention, but walked with dignity to stand beside the Tycoon. Maria Santos, Richard said, his voice thick with genuine emotion, has worked as a janitor in this building for 18 years. While our experts searched for complex solutions in codes and algorithms, she used something far more powerful. Observation, experience, and intimate knowledge of how this place really works. The auditorium erupted in applause. Many staff members stood, some wiping tears from their eyes. Dr. Marcus Chen, seated in the middle of the audience, applauded vigorously, his expression showing genuine admiration and a healthy dose of humility. This is the kind of moment that restores our faith in humanity. When merit is recognized regardless of titles or social status, keep watching because Maria's reaction to receiving the award will move you. Richard addressed the audience again. Today, in addition to solving our technical problem, Maria taught us something fundamental. That true competence isn't measured solely by diplomas or certifications. It's measured by dedication, careful observation, and a deep understanding of the work we do. He turned to Maria. Ms. Santos, as promised, here's your check for $50,000. But more than that, I'd like to offer you a promotion. Our company needs more people like you in leadership positions. Maria held the check with trembling hands, barely able to believe the reality of that moment. For 18 years, she had cleaned offices, emptied trash cans, vacuumed carpets, always invisible to most of the people who worked in that building. Now, suddenly, she was being recognized as the hero who had saved the company. Mr. Thompson, she said into the microphone, her voice initially hesitant but gaining strength, thank you for this opportunity. But I want to say something important to everyone here. The auditorium fell completely silent. For years, I've watched this place operate. I've seen people come in early and leave late, dedicating their lives to growing this company. I've seen windows that needed extra cleaning because someone had worked too late, trash cans full of drafts of important projects, carpets worn from the footsteps of dedicated employees. She paused, looking out at the audience with eyes bright with emotion. You are all part of this company. You all contribute in some way. What happened to me could have happened to anyone who paid attention and genuinely cared about this place. I'm not special. I just happened to be in the right position at the right time with my eyes open. What a lesson in humility and wisdom. Maria not only solved a technical problem, but also taught us about community, observation, and the importance of valuing each person in an organization. Like this video if you were also moved by this display of character. The ovation that followed was even more intense than the previous one. Employees from every department rose to their feet, applauding not only Maria, but also the lesson they had all learned that day. Dr. Chen walked to the stage and, in front of everyone, shook Maria's hand with genuine respect. Ms. Santos, he said, thank you for reminding us that humility is the mark of true intelligence. I learned more about problem solving today than I have in my 20-year career. In the months that followed, Maria's story spread far beyond the walls of Thompson Industries. Local newspapers covered the story. Business blogs used her as an example of innovative management. Universities included her in case studies on workplace diversity and employee appreciation. Maria accepted Richard's promotion, becoming facilities and building maintenance supervisor. Her first act was to implement a program where employees at all levels could contribute observations about the building's operation, creating a formal system to capture the kind of practical knowledge that had made her discovery possible. Richard Thompson completely revamped his management approach. He instituted monthly meetings where employees from all departments could present ideas directly to the board. He created a recognition program that valued not only financial results but also insightful observations and contributions to solving operational problems. The transformation was complete. A simple technical problem-solving solution transformed Thompson Industries' corporate culture into a revolution. Subscribe to the channel because stories like this show that real change begins when we recognize the value of each person. Dr. Marcus Chen used the experience as a catalyst to rethink his own professional approach. He began incorporating in-depth interviews with operational staff into his consulting sessions, recognizing that people who work with systems daily often have insights that can escape purely technical analysis. The contract cleaning company that had installed the robotic vacuums was initially embarrassed by the situation, but Richard and Maria turned the incident into a learning opportunity. They worked together to develop integration protocols that would ensure future equipment was properly tested and integrated into existing systems. Sarah Williams, inspired by Maria's example, began spending more time directly observing how users interacted with the system she designed, rather than relying solely on data and reports. She found that this closer observational approach resulted in more elegant and effective solutions. The $50,000 changed Maria's life in both practical and profound ways. She paid off the mortgage on her modest Queens home, established an education fund for her 2 grandchildren, and for the first time in years could sleep without worrying about bills at the end of the month. But perhaps even more important than financial security was the recognition and respect she gained. This story teaches us that great solutions can come from unexpected places, that practical experience is immensely valuable, and that we should never underestimate people based on appearances or hierarchical positions. Like this post if you believe everyone deserves to be heard and valued. 6 months later, during the company's annual celebration, Richard Thompson made a point of telling Maria's story again to the new employees, but this time Maria was sitting at the boardroom table, no longer invisible but recognized as one of the organization's most important voices. The lesson Maria taught us, Richard said that night, wasn't just about solving technical problems. It was about humility, about listening to all voices, about recognizing that intelligence and competence come in many different forms. He looked at Maria, who was smiling slightly. She showed us that sometimes the person most qualified to solve a problem isn't the one with the most degrees, but the one who truly knows the situation inside and out. The story of Maria Santos and the $50,000 became legendary at Thompson Industries. New employees heard about her during orientation. Managers used her as an example in leadership training. And whenever the company faced a difficult problem, someone inevitably asked, "Have we talked to the people who actually know this process on a daily basis?" This is a story about recognizing the value in everyone around us, about keeping our eyes and ears open, and about how a respectful and inclusive attitude can reveal solutions that were hidden in plain sight. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more stories that will inspire and surprise you. The story's impact extended far beyond corporate walls. Maria was invited to speak at conferences on management and workplace diversity. Her message was always simple yet powerful. Pay attention to the people around you. Listen respectfully. You never know where the next great idea will come from. Richard Thompson often reflected on how that episode had changed not only his company, but also his perspective on leadership and management. He had learned that true leaders create environments where all voices can be heard, where experience is valued regardless of title, and where solutions can emerge from the most unexpected places. Thompson Industries became a case study in business schools not only for its financial performance, but also for its innovative organizational culture that valued contributions from all levels. The company began attracting talent seeking to work in truly inclusive and collaborative environments. And so ends this extraordinary story that reminds us that people's true value isn't measured by titles or salaries, but by their dedication, observation, and willingness to contribute. Like, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with people who need to be reminded that everyone has something valuable to offer. Years later, when journalists asked Maria about the secret of her discovery, she always gave the same answer. There is no secret. I just paid attention to my work and genuinely cared about the place where I spent most of my days. When you really care, you naturally notice when things aren't working as they should. This story continues to inspire people around the world, reminding us that great solutions can come from anywhere, that practical experience is invaluable, and that we should never underestimate someone based solely on appearance or social standing. Maria Santos taught us that sometimes the wisest person in the room is the one everyone ignores, and that true intelligence manifests itself through careful observation, humility,